Lost media usually refers to a piece of media that aired but has no archived record on the internet. This is usually because the show or movie had limited airing, or something like a pilot that may or may not have aired. There's the abstract version of the term, where it's from memory and only a few people are aware of its existence, if they even remember at all. And then there's the lost media that may or may not exist. But there's also a variation of lost media of something that aired multiple times on a network, but has very little or no archived records due to lack of recording. This is commonly used for commercials or bumpers that can't properly have a DVD release or anything like that. But a lot of these include TV shows like Cousin Skeeter, But Ugly Martians, Timo Supremo, shows that had fans, but had low ratings or were really generic. Although there's other factors, like when the show was made. And there's multiple shows where this happened. But I think out of all these shows, one of them still baffles me. Because, in my opinion, I do believe that a lot of the backlash, hate, stigma the show received probably helped made its way to lost media. And that show was Out of Jimmy's Head. The show was hated for being live action. Now, sure, it does have 2D elements in it, but it still wasn't enough. The show started as a TV movie pilot called Reanimated. The movie has the main character gaining brain damage from Disney World. Or not Disney World. The doctors in the amusement park, yes, that's what I said, decide to replace his brain with that of Walt Disney. Or not Walt Disney. Okay, look, it's clearly based off Disney. Although it's not out of spite or anything. I just think it's strange for another network to be paying homage to a competitor. But he still keeps his personality. Because of this, he hallucinates the characters that not Walt Disney made. It's kind of like hallucinating Mickey Mouse walking around everywhere. He is chased by the villain, who is based off a 1930 era of animation. And has a sad backstory where her friend abandons her for 6,000 years and... Oh, I apologize, my mind is somewhere else right now. There's just better movies I should be watching. Also, because he has the brain of Walt Disney, he ends up becoming the CEO, and tries to make the cartoon characters popular again, after tons of terrible reboots. However, he starts to become a jerk and starts drifting away from his friends and returns to his life as a normal kid, typical generic story. Also, his sister is a Martian. Yeah, just put that out of nowhere. The movie itself is very weird. I mean, yeah, it's bad, but it's a silly movie. Honestly, the best character in the show is the father.
I can't believe I was so blind. It all makes sense. Your mysterious arrival after Jimmy's accident. Your secret equipment tracking his every move.
I can explain.
But it wasn't until today when I looked into those eyes, those dark, mysterious eyes, that I figured it out. Yancy, it's your mother in disguise.
What? What?
She didn't go to the moon at all. She's been here all along, making sure we were behaving. Watch this.
Ah! My lip piece.
See, it's totally your mother.
What is wrong with you?
It makes me feel important.
Big
Yeah.
kiss.
Forget you people. I'm getting my brain.
But, like I said, it's just fairly generic. Go watch something else. I guess it could be enjoyed for being so bad it's good though. The movie was hailed as the very first TV movie made by Cartoon Network, although technically it's not the first live-action program it had. And the ratings became high enough to produce a TV show. And they did, and that show was called Out of Jimmy's Head. The TV show is a continuation of the movie. All the actors return for the roles, with the exception of the brother and sister best friend characters being changed from Asian to black. Okay. These episodes are just really bland. It's not as absurd as the movie. Now, I do appreciate the Martian girl dating a guy who just so happens to be a werewolf, but it's not enough. The show was cancelled within 20 episodes, due to poor ratings. After this, you'd think that Cartoon Network would realize that live action isn't really worth it. But they decided to try it a few times more, with one of their biggest blunders being CN Real. Now, where Out of Jimmy's Head had animation, all of these shows were live action. Many of these shows on the blog only lasted for a few episodes. After a few months, CN Real was cancelled. And I think to an extent this really helped stigmatize the reanimated TV movie, for helping Cartoon Network's jump to live action. For the movie, Cartoon Network solely aired cartoons. Well, 99% of the time. And one of the biggest plus sides was allowing reruns of even older shows and movies, from Hanna-Barbera to Looney Tunes. Now, I didn't really care too much about it when it aired, although I did thought the hate was a little unjustified. Space Jam aired a few times on Cartoon Network, and that was also live action and animation. I didn't see anyone complaining back then, though I didn't have the internet at the time, so of course I wouldn't. Now, I'm not saying that Space Jam is on par with Out of Jimmy's Head. Space Jam definitely has better animation than this. Like, the Flash animation just looks really ugly. I'm just talking about the core concept, although I do give it an A for effort for trying to be just as weird. So if Space Jam fits, you must acquit. However, that does not excuse shows like Tim and Eric, Eric Andre, and many other live-action shows from Adult Swim. Yeah, it's Adult Swim, but it's still a part of Cartoon Network. And I didn't hear anyone complain about Children's Hospital airing. But those shows are funny, so shut up.
Who killed Cartoon Network?
The show aired for 20 episodes. After cancellation, the show was streamed on the official Cartoon Network site. And it was later shown on Boomerang, where a lot of the older and canceled shows were shoved into. The show did get a few DVD releases, with the movie and the first 3 episodes. However, despite that, half of the show was considered lost media. And the other 7 were scoured by fans. But the other 10 are lost. Technically. The episodes are found, but not in English. The rest of the show was found in Romanian.
Hei, ce-i cu fața asta tristanice? Vreo fată? Da. Oh, îți plăcea de o fată și ți-ai dat seama că este doar dinamită cu ruși și perucă.
Damn, now that's truly scraping the bottom of the barrel. Now, there has been similar shows that fell in the cracks of lost media. For instance, 2 shows in particular were shows that debuted on the start of CN Real. Only had 5 episodes before being cancelled. Then there was another live-action show in the very late 90s called Big Bag, which was a Sesame Street-like show. But it's also considered lost media too. But I do think there's a difference between those shows and On a Jimmy's Head. Chances are that people who remember CN Real probably won't even recognize these shows. And for Big Bag, since the show was aimed at preschoolers, there wouldn't be any fans that care enough to save it. I think. Out of Jimmy's Head had a major backlash when it was airing. And despite all the chances it had to be archived, it couldn't catch a break. And like I said, there were multiple. There were the original airings, Boomerang, the official website. But what I think is so crazy is when it came out. Now, I did bring up some of these other shows like But Ugly Martian and Cousin Skeeter. Now, those shows are considered lost media, but they aired in 1999 to 2002. When I first accessed the internet forums in 2005, fans were downloading episodes through direct download or BitTorrent. And since the internet connections weren't really the best, I would imagine at the time a lot of these fans couldn't keep up. But the main difference is that Out of Jimmy's Head had YouTube. Yeah, sure, there's copyright issues now, but even during that time, people were uploading episodes of everything, split up or otherwise. So even with the luxury of YouTube, Out of Jimmy's Head still had no chance. And that's just baffling to me. Say what you will about Johnny Test, there are people who watched and defended it. Or Teen Titans Go, which has tons of support from its intended audience. Also, Young Justice is back, there's more Teen Titans movies coming out, Cyborg's a Justice League member, I think, and it's been like 18 years, let it go. But what about the other shows on CN Real? Well, apparently the other shows fared better. Shows like Dude, What Will Happen managed to survive longer than the block itself. And you could download it on iTunes. And there was this other show at the time called Survive This. I don't even recognize this show, and it has like 15 episodes, and you can find that on iTunes too. So apparently people like this show more than Out of Jimmy's Head. And yeah, by the way, no, Out of Jimmy's Head is not on iTunes, Hulu, or any other streaming service like that. That's how little people cared about this show. I think the reason I find this case so interesting is the extent of how much people hate it, regardless of how irrational it may be. To a point where I think it's objectively the most hated show on Cartoon Network. Sure, none of the other shows on the lost media list were even that good in the first place, but they didn't have that much outrage. So much so that the show unintentionally became wiped off from the internet. But are toxic hate fandoms exactly the reason why it became lost? Well, no. It probably didn't have that much fans in the first place. And like I said, the show really did suck. When something is considered lost media, there's usually an aura of mystery behind it, like what the show was like, or why it was shelved for so long. But sometimes when you open that treasure chest, all you get is a bucket of crap. Then you see shows that are just as bad, probably worse, but they're still archived, like Super Duper Sumo.
Super Duper Sumo! Whoa! Super Duper Sumo!